That's pretty bad when God says what? Hey everybody, welcome to the Annoying Peasant Radio Show. We're live, we're on the air, I think.
What's your name? Who are you?
Exactly.
Who are both of you guys?
Brad's not here, but we got Trigger with us tonight. Say hello, Trigger.
Hello, Trigger.
Ah, you're so funny.
I don't know who you two guys are. It's been a while.
Yeah, no kidding.
We don't know each other anymore, for God's sake.
Where you been?
Me?
Yeah.
Right here.
Oh,
Every
attaboy.
Tuesday night, waiting for you guys. But no.
Yeah.
Just like all the hundreds of thousands of other listeners that we have waiting on us.
Yeah, that's it. Hundreds of thousands.
Millions.
So, everybody, welcome to the Annoying Peasant Radio Show. Glad you're with us here this evening, or I guess whenever you listen to this. Could be morning, could be afternoon.
We are doing kind of a quick little throw together impromptu show. Of course, Tom's prepared. I've got a few things on my mind.
Ooh.
If anybody can believe that.
Slim pickings there.
I know. I've been thinking about this for 2 months.
We already lost Trigger. That's it. Good night, everybody. What's on your mind, Trigger? He's already laughing. I don't know what his problem is. Anyway, we're going to talk about a few different things, but I guess catch up a little bit. So what have you been up to?
Not much, Tom.
Playing basketball? Have you been watching the playoffs?
Yeah, my Pacers are doing okay. They're coming
Yeah,
back
where are they?
around.
Where are
They're
they?
getting their butts kicked tonight.
Are they?
Yeah, by evil Washington.
What's the series stand?
3-1. They're going to be 3-2 after tonight.
Oh, they were
They're
ahead.
They're ahead.
I didn't know that.
Then we'd be up against evil Miami. I think after
Miami's,
this.
the last I heard, they're up 3-1.
Yeah, they're killing.
And
And they're going to kill us.
Spurs are up 3-1. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then who else is in it? Clippers. See, Clippers. We got to talk about Donald Sterling.
Clippers and the Vikings, I think.
Clippers and the Vikings. Yeah, that's it. That was one of the things I was going to put on the docket. Donald Sterling.
Oh, that's you stole one of my ideas. What am I going to do?
Crap. All right, well, go for it.
No, we'll get to that.
Since we talked about the Clippers.
Anyway, you're the one with all the smart words on the page.
Oh, yeah. Well, just for everybody to give a rundown, we probably won't do it in this order, but we're going to talk about property rights and how intellectual property is different than regular physical property.
Okay.
That kind of ties back to we talked about 100 years ago about patents.
Sure.
Remember patent trolling, Monsanto?
You bet.
Right?
One of my favorite topics.
This is probably something I should have mentioned during those shows, but I neglected to.
Fine.
Yeah, see, so as I learn little dribs and drabs, we'll just add it to that. So anyway, some stuff there, and then something I call the unified theory. We'll get into that when we get into it. And then I got an article from Tanya about the Mexican drug cartels.
Cool.
And the legalization of pot.
Cool.
So kind of interesting there.
Okay.
And then, of course, the last thing I had on there was Donald Sterling.
I like it.
So, but what do you got? What do you want
this show is brought to you by
Donald Sterling,
the United States Postal Service.
Oh, yes, I know. That's what he likes. That's what he mentioned that before.
Because in one of our conversations, I was so pleased to see that the United States Priority Mail or whatever, the Express Mail or whatever it is the main sponsor of the new Spider-Man movie.
That's right, the Spider.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
That's where I would put my taxpayer money.
Yes. There's another one of the problems with statism. You don't have control. It's here. I'll hand over my money to these fellas, and they'll do with it as they see fit.
Right.
Sounds like a bad deal to me, but apparently the overwhelming majority of the country's against me. They think it's a really good idea. Statism. We love it.
I just saw it and laughed. I'm like, well, that is really something that our government should have a hand in.
Yeah. Promoting
a movie by a major studio with some really neat actors. And it's probably a great movie. But seriously.
People say to me, well, what do you mean we shouldn't promote the use of the Postal Service? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. If FedEx were to do it, I have no problem with them doing it. Because why? They should be responsible to their shareholders, right? It's all part of it. Whether they make money or lose money at it, they pay the consequences for that. And, of course, Mises is the one who said there's no economic calculation in the government with the state. So what do they measure? What do they even care? So sales bump up 0. They go,
Right.
well, here's the deal. We should have spent more money on advertising. That would have made a difference.
Or, hey, that was a bad idea, and we should sponsor only romantic comedies going forward. Maybe
Yeah,
no more Spider-Mans. Or we should sponsor bowling teams. I don't care. They can decide whatever they want to do. It's not our money.
I would sponsor Lance Armstrong and the U.S. Postal Service cycling team.
Absolutely. He's going to do a comeback.
That's right. Well, you never know.
But whatever. But your point is that they should be it's free enterprise. You know, it's up to them. Those aren't government tax dollars.
Here's the point: the U.S. Postal Service should be out of business. They have no business doing what they're doing.
Well, that was my second layer to my irritation with this is let's spend a whole bunch of money sponsoring a movie on something that we're pouring, in my infamous ex-father-in-law's words, not smart enough to pour dirt down a rat hole or whatever. We're pouring money into this thing that's going to go bust.
Giant money loser, and that's the whole point. If it would be FedEx and they were losing money like this, they would go bust.
Right.
They would dissolve, and that would be the end of a inefficient business.
Right. Or a poorly managed, or a failed, whatever the reason.
Right. But with the state, that's exactly not what happens. When they start losing money, they say, here, we got to give them more money.
Right.
Right? So what we do is subsidize another loser to make them a bigger loser.
Yep.
And then they ask for more money again, and we just perpetuate the cycle. The whole problem is they don't have the incentive to be efficient.
Right.
Not inefficient, efficient, sorry. So, well, Trigger,
They're more efficient because they stop picking up later in the day now.
Oh, yes. They're the model of efficiency. No kidding.
So that's, think about that, folks. Does that make any sense that the U.S. Postal Service, yes, didn't they sponsor Lance Armstrong? I think that was true.
Yes, they did.
And whatever else, what good is that?
Right.
Is that maybe they should be putting that into making themselves more efficient. Maybe they shouldn't be spending the money at all.
Yeah, they don't have the incentive to do those things. That's why. They don't have the incentive to become more efficient. They actually have the incentive to become less efficient because that way they'll get more money. If they're more efficient, they might get their budget cut.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, that's this for Tanya, the perverse incentives that are created by the state.
Okay.
So anyway.
Okay, so that was my first serve. What do you want to talk about? Your turn next.
Well, let's go to instead of something so philosophical and stuff. We're either going to do drug cartels and legalization of pot, or we're going to do Donald Sterling.
I thought we were going to be philosophical.
You want to do okay?
I don't care. Do what you want.
We're going to do drug cartels first, and if we're going to do drug cartels,
you're the king, Tom.
I am. No. I am the king of the world. Here we go. We're going to talk of the story, but here's my little.
You want to be a king when you can be a god?
Good point. I relinquish my title. I am now God. So we're going to talk about drug cartels that Tiny gave me. So here's my little lead-in music.
I like it.
See? I am hip or what? Get it?
Dancing on my bird from the edge of Soweto. The gringos, big flow, yes, the cowboy. Kill wagons with a glance from the people of Illinois. I might store their underwear.
Today, we'll just leave that down low in the background.
Yes. Everybody's enjoying this so much.
During this whole section, we gotta have that going, so you get the full flavor and effect.
I feel like somebody should be serving me chips and salsa.
Damn. Trigger, get in the kitchen, start making stuff. Here we go. Interesting story. It was on Policy Mike, if I've got that right, I think. It's entitled 3 Months After Marijuana Legalization. Here's what's happening to Mexican drug cartels. I will post the link on our Facebook page, of course, New England Peasant Radio. But it's an interesting story. It's about the concept that the price... Here, wait a minute. I'll get the numbers out of here. Like a price... I can't remember for what. All kinds of fancy arrows and stuff. Here you go. Over the past 5 years, wholesale drug prices, I believe this is marijuana, are down from $100 per kilo to a measly $25. That's according to the Washington Post. Okay? So here's the bottom line. With the legalization... All right, that's enough of that crap. We're all done there.
Oh, come on. I'm waiting on my burrito.
Yeah. With the legalization of pot, of course, there's legal growers that can grow legally in the United States. So the Mexican drug cartels are supplying less marijuana, right? So this, I think the light of this story, or at least the vibe I got from it, was like, this is a little surprising that, they're changing. What they're doing is they're growing more opium now. It's going to take a while, I guess, before they're really online, but the profit margin is much greater in opium than it is in marijuana. Really? So they're moving that. Well, and again, the vibe of this, I got that this was a little shocking. I'm like, seriously, do you think they were just going, dang, price of pot went down, we're just going to fold up our tent and go home, that's it, we're all done, right? They're going to figure out, just like any businessman would, right? If you were selling ice cream cones and the new rage became yogurt cones, you would probably migrate to yogurt cones, where the money's to be made.
Or dishes. Nobody wanted to do the cones. It had to come in a cup.
Right. I mean, something, right? You either, innovate, or you die. That's in almost any business, right? It'd be kind of a bad time to get into the buggy whip business. I mean, it's kind of gone by the wayside. Okay, but you innovate or die. So that's what you would fully expect in a free market for these guys to do. And just to a large degree, it's a free market that exists there. So they're innovating, and they think there's a higher profit margin on opium, so they're growing opium and heroin, right? I think that's what you get from opium. Anyway, so that's what they're doing. That's what's interesting. There's all kinds of statistics and all kinds of stuff in that article. If you get a chance, check that out. I'm trying to go.
So let's talk about, just backing up. We always talk about the free market and the impact of free market, and the free market should decide things. It's a very liberty has a very heavy emphasis on free market society, right?
Absolutely. Two things. It's completely based. It's voluntary based, right? There's no coercion involved. Again,
what's coercion, Tom?
When the best example I think is a highway robber, and he comes up to you and says, "Your money or your life," right? And you're like, You pull out your wallet and you're thinking, "How much money do I have in there? I only have $3. I'll just hand you the money," right?
Right.
But in other words, you have a bad choice or a worse choice.
Okay.
And those are the only choices given to you, right?
Okay.
Basically, what it boils down to is a threat, at minimum, a threat on your property.
A mandate.
Right.
Okay.
So you, in the normal case, you have one choice, but it's bad or worse. And again, it's largely, and I say this about the state too, you're at the point of a gun, ultimately. And people say, well, look, nobody threatened me with a gun. Yeah, but hold out. Don't pay your taxes and then get your summons to court and don't respond. And ultimately, the state has the authority to put you to death. They will come with guns ablazing. I mean, we've talked about a number of stories on this show, how the SWAT teams have gone into places and, a couple times, went to the wrong place, right? Yeah. So they do come, and I think people use the excuse, well, they haven't come for me yet, so it's not a problem. Well, the day when they finally do come for me, all of a sudden it's going to be a problem. And I'm like, hey, wake up, to what's going on.
Okay, so back to free market.
Yes, free market based, it's completely voluntary. That's the thing. When we had Jacob Hubert on back in January, he said, really, when you say, hey, this should be done by the free market instead of the state doing it, a lot of people say, oh, great, leave it up to survival of the fittest. The poor guy's going to get screwed over. The guy with less talent, the guy with less capital, the guy, right, in a disadvantaged position.
He shouldn't be in that market then.
Well, that's what ultimately will happen. He will, but
change and go to somewhere where he is good.
Absolutely.
He can make it.
Take advantage of what assets he has, right?
Okay, so let's take it back to the drug story. So pot gets legalized in several states.
Yes, Colorado being one of them.
Okay, in the U.S., and that then makes it legal to grow.
Yes.
To provide to these places that are selling.
So the supply has increased.
The supply has increased, and it's probably put the cartel. Play the music again. Come on, we gotta play.
Oh, I know I'm under pressure.
Oh, come on, we gotta play. We're gonna talk about the Mexican cartel, so we gotta play the music.
We gotta play. Here we go. Back from the top. Hit it.
Okay, so the Mexican cartels down there, they were trying to control the market, right?
Of course.
Keep as much money as they possibly can. So, bang! All of a sudden, now comes a whole new competitor of theirs and starts to erode probably their market share.
It does, because why? The cost of growing legally in the U.S., they have lower cost structure than the Mexican drug cartels, because they still have to grow in both places, right? The Mexican drug cartels have some transportation costs, but they also have security costs. Right? They have to smuggle the shit across the border, right? They have to do it in the black market. There's costs associated with it, and some of their products are confiscated, so they have losses there.
And taking this aside, maybe while they were charging $100, as the article quoted earlier, and they were making $75 because they're killing it and they were able to control the market, now they can't do that anymore.
Exactly.
And so maybe they're still profitable, but what are they doing? They're innovating and going, wow, we got to go sell something that we can make more on, like we used to with pot, because we can't do that anymore.
Exactly.
Okay?
So the low-cost producer is winning, and I am not saying this is a free market; it's a hampered market. But there's
Government
it's still, trying to keep the Mexican cartels and all these guys out. But the point is, since they have a cost advantage, a government-mandated cost advantage in the U.S., they're able. So, but not only has the price gone down, I understand from what I've read, is the quality of the pot has gone way up. Okay. And in the variety
of theirs or
the
across the board?
The pot across the board.
Party on.
Right? Okay?
Yeah.
Party on.
Wait. Yeah.
I got it.
I'm adapting. I got the Mexican music. I got the party on.
All right, that's enough of that. We're all done there.
A really hip young guy.
Okay, so not only is the price lower, quality has gone up. It's maybe you say a freer market than it was. Mm-hmm. And only imagine what it would be is if the state got completely out of it.
Completely free.
Yeah, quality would go higher. The other big thing is, I think there's got to be some liability by the retailers, right? If you sell me some bad dope, I have recourse now.
Okay.
Whereas if I go out on the street, and even if I say I can get the same quality and say the same price from a certain supplier, the problem is I got no recourse if he lines it with rat poisoning.
Right.
I don't know that many kids, especially, do a chemical analysis to determine what's in there before they smoke the stuff.
Are you endorsing the regulatory nature of the government in this pot
Not
thing?
at all.
Okay.
I'm just saying if it's in above board, instead of being pushed into the black market, you do have recourse.
Okay.
Right? So there are all kinds of advantages to, some people call it legalization. I like to call it decriminalization, because I think the government had no business in creating the drug war in the first place. Now, when I say no business, they have no jurisdiction. Clearly, if you look at the Constitution, they have no jurisdiction. And you can also make the argument that the Constitution is one of no authority, but that's a whole other Lysander Spooner thing.
Okay.
But even if you want to go back to the Constitution, it says basically, hey, they can do whatever it says here. If it's not listed here, they can't do it. So I don't get it.
Okay.
I get it. It's authority they wanted, so they seized it.
Okay.
That's how they do everything.
Okay. So quality was going up, prices going down. They're going to diversify. They're going to go do something else.
Yes. They're going to go find something that gets them a better profit margin because their costs are so high.
And they can do it illegally and probably control the market more.
Well, they're going to give it a whirl. Okay. That's for sure. Because, of course, the opium market, which is heroin, I believe, is still, it's all illegal.
Sure.
So there's no legal competitor in the United States that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So they're going to that. And hey, the bottom line is, too, these cartels have been doing this for how long? They're good at it by now.
Right.
I mean, through trial and error, if nothing else.
Okay.
They go, that didn't work. We better not do that again.
Right.
Okay. And so they get better at it, and they can, also like any business, they're trying to reduce their costs. They fix the errors and move on.
And maintain the profitability.
Or increase it.
If they exactly.
Can. So, anyway, that was my Mexican...
See, this ought to be an economics lesson for all grade school classes, right there.
It is. There was a young gal in our office earlier today. I was trying to get her to listen to the course by Robert Murphy on it was about economics in the state or something, or how the state destroys wealth or something. I can't remember the exact title, but I said, hey, if you participate in these 6 lectures, you'd know more than any teacher that you're going to see till I don't know what grade she was in, like third, second grade. I'm through senior year. And then kind of chuckle at me and go, I'm serious.
Okay, so let's see how good you are. How old was she? Make up a number.
8.
She was 8. So she sets up a lemonade stand.
Yes. She goes to jail. She doesn't have a retail sales license.
Mm.
That's how we do it here in this country.
Okay. But then, similarly to the Mexican cartel, 2 other kids right down the block, where all the main traffic comes from, also set up lemonade stands.
Yes.
And they start selling theirs for a lower price.
There you go. See?
Same deal, right?
Supply goes up.
So what should she do?
She should increase her quality. She should provide a better service with her
On the
lemonade.
street.
Maybe start selling
Go to a better location.
better location. Maybe
Go down 2 blocks farther than that.
maybe sell lemonade cranberry.
Yes.
Something, right?
There's almost always there's some angle to try.
Right.
You know, it gets to be hard to figure out how to beat the competition. That's what every company is trying to do,
There
right?
you go.
So
Okay.
Trash talk.
trash talking. There you go.
Threaten
That's,
them.
that's what
Bring in
social media is for.
Bring in the mob. Bring in the mob
Bring
and
in
shut
the
them
mob.
down.
Mexican drug cartel if you have to. Anyway,
All right.
Start some
hey, and it
lemonade
just
with
occurred to me,
marijuana.
the one that's not on here that we should be talking about.
Here we go.
Only reason is because everybody else is talking about, which is probably why we shouldn't talk about it. So I'll bring it up.
Do it.
Did you ever hear of this gal by the name of Michelle Obama? And there's
Let me see.
these young gals in Nigeria who are
Yep.
being held captive. I think that's isn't it? I haven't been listening to the news so closely.
Well, I
Is that
heard
the
of some
beast
other
story?
atrocity in Nigeria about some school boys too. I think. Did I not read that too?
You
I
may
don't
have. I don't.
Okay,
I don't.
so let's just leave it alone. Leave that alone. Let's talk about it. Because so she's stepped out and she's very concerned
Yes,
and expressing that concern and probably using her political position.
she already is. She steps out and she's the first lady.
Yeah.
If she says anything, she's using her
She's
political
using her
position.
all right,
Because
so-
if she's Michelle Obama from 15 years ago and she says something, nobody listens to her. Kind of like this show. But
Boom, check. All right, so tell the story.
okay, so there's I don't even remember the fellow's name. Guys holding, whoa, geez, incoming news. What do they call on with teletype or whatever?
Yeah, there's so many of those these days.
Oh, Lisa never got the show to be live. She can't figure it out. I don't know how people. I was showing Radio Joe that today. I don't understand what the problem is, but oh well. So she speaks out, right? So she puts herself out there. But the deal is, there's a fella. I can't remember his name. He's already laughing again.
I know,
We
I
lost Trigger. We lost him. Anyway, she speaks out about this. There's a I don't know if he's associated somehow with Al Qaeda. He's fully grabbed like 200 young gals. He's threatening to sell these gals into slavery unless the Nigerian government, I think, is only the Nigerian government, but it could be other governments, who are holding some of his comrades. He says, you let those fellas go, and then I'll let the gals go. So, of course, Michelle Obama says, we stand behind these gals. We are with them. And also, really, we with them? I don't think we're with them. They're over there. They're being held hostage. How are we with them? And if I'm a little girl and I hear that the United States is with me, this doesn't mean diddly squat. Nothing's being done, right?
Isn't she expressing compassion?
Yeah, it's called BS, platitudes. If you don't do anything, it's not worth anything.
So we should go in and send in the Navy SEALs.
Great point. Here's the deal. This is how things are always dealt with in a vacuum. We have this situation where these gals are being held. Let's stop for a half a second and think about what's been happening before in that area, right? Why is this guy doing this? He might just be a bad apple.
Mm-hmm.
I never met the man,
Mm-hmm.
so I can't tell you what he is. But I can tell you that the United States has been meddling in this part of the world for how long?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Our lifetimes,
Okay.
for sure, and maybe more. I'm no historian.
Okay.
But eventually, people get pissed off. Now, again, it appears at the moment, the little information I have, that he's not doing this directly against the United States.
Mhm.
Okay, so I can't show that link.
Mhm.
But I'm saying in general, we deal with these things in a vacuum. We say, hey, this guy ran this plane into this building. How are we going to go kick his ass?
Mhm.
Right? But Ron Paul got roundly booed for saying in a primary. Was it the Rudy Giuliani responded to him, but saying, "Hey, we ought to think about this. What have we been doing there before, just to even if the answer is we're totally innocent, we, and I hate to use those pronouns, but the United States government took no action to piss anybody off. Let's say we come to that conclusion. Fine. Then we know there's some crazy dudes, and they should be brought to justice, and they should be brought to justice anyway, right?
Okay.
Even if the U.S. government did something to tick them off, that doesn't give them the right to go kill innocent people, right? So I'm not saying, hey, they're justified. That's fine. 9/11 is great, okay? Just like in this circumstance, I don't know what all the details are. It appears, at least the little I've seen, that, again, he's not striking against the United States. He's striking against these 200 gals. He's trying to get his comrades released, apparently.
Okay.
But the point is, let's not deal with these things in a vacuum. Let's look at the full context. Let's find out the situation. And again, Ron Paul was booed just for asking that question. And Giuliani turned around and said, I've never heard anything like that. You're saying we caused this? He's like, I didn't say that. I'm saying we should ask the question to find out.
Okay.
Right? And that's what's a problem with the 30-second soundbite world. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And which is, I will also add, that's the problem with our show. Our show is a long-form conversation. We constantly say you got to build the context. You can't just listen to, 3 things that either one of us says and go, oh, those guys are nuts, and turn it off.
Right.
The answer is we may be nuts.
Yes.
We're not saying we're not.
That's
I mean, Brad's wearing that tin-covered hat again tonight, but that's another story. But, right, so that's what's weird about this, that the whole world thinks, I should say, a big chunk of the world thinks everything's a quickie fix. Everything's a quickie, very shallow problem. I'm almost saying, look deeper, find the roots before we come to our conclusion. I don't know why that's such a crazy thing, but apparently it is. Ask the rest of the world.
Okay.
All right. So that was, unless you want to add more about Michelle Obama. By the way, the Libertarians have been having fun with her.
Okay.
There was a photo of her holding thing like the hashtag thing, like, what was it, like let our girls go, or, so the Libertarians have been obviously changing the message, like, my husband kills 200 girls a year with drone strikes and stuff like that, which is true. As much as everybody wants to say those drone strikes are justified, I get that they have that position. Mm-hmm. I'm saying resoundingly, their position is wrong. When innocents are being killed, that's just wrong. And even the guilty, I'm using the air quotes for those of you who don't have our, what is Fresh Limbaugh called? Worst 24/7 camera.
Right.
The Tom 24/7 camera, not live.
Not on the video feed.
Not on the video feed, yes. What was I talking about? The drone strikes themselves, even if the guilty guys are getting, there's no due process of law. You cannot do this. I just can't go determine that some guy walking in Ukraine on Main Street, for whatever evidence I built up, let's say I have, you look at it, you say, hey, that's overwhelming. The point is, justice only works when the defendant has his day in court. He has to have an opportunity to defend himself, right? And I know different countries have different processes, but the whole point is you have to at least afford them the opportunity to defend themselves. You can't just press the button and kill them because you have a pile of evidence against them. So what I'm saying is that killing those innocent kids, uncles, nephews, whatever, is certainly wrong, but the parties that they claim are guilty, that's also wrong. They have to be given due process. Everybody has to, with the exception of uniformed people on the field of battle. That's a whole another thing.
So what should Michelle Obama be doing?
She should be holding up a lot of those libertarian signs and photographs for real. That would be awesome. Well, the real short answer is she should say, hey.
She shouldn't be a president.
Exactly. My husband and I, we're walking away from this whole thing because this is one bad deal, which is never going to happen because the reason they got there is because they're power hungry, which is the only way they're going to give up their power is they're not going to give it up. It's going to have to be taken away from them.
All right.
So it's a long due process, and they're never going to see the light because also validity is assumed by Obama, saying, I'm arguing with Obama right now over the radio waves. Assumed he was a law professor. I'm nobody. Obviously, he knows the Constitution. I don't. I don't happen to agree with that, but I know the overwhelming majority of people would say, oh, what do you know? He's a law professor. He taught law. You don't know anything about law. No, I would say I know about the principles of law. I think a lot of people know the principles of law. I think what they are is lost in the minutia of the garbage of our legal system, right? Which is, you shouldn't have to hire an attorney for simple court cases, but you do because of the minutia nowadays. So the cost of justice is higher, and there's more injustice as a result. Anyway.
All right. Okay. Turning the page.
All right, Trigger, are you ready to get Phil? We're going to do, what did we did the unified theory. Didn't we talk about that on Saturday? No. Was that Saturday? When was that? Thursday. See, you don't even remember. What kind of student? Yeah, remembers the day. He doesn't remember the topic. We talked about something I brought up because I thought this was very interesting. Maybe you'll jar your memory. I remember. Okay, so I'm on vacation in South Carolina with 2 other couples.
Okay.
And I only bring that up because I have this semi-frequently with people. They kind of say, what are you into? And I say, oh, I'm into this stuff, and then I do this radio show, blah, blah, blah. And they say, what's a libertarian, basically, or what's an anarcho-capitalist? And I kind of tell. And they say, well, so, like, where are you on the positions or on certain viewpoints? And, I'll say marijuana, legalized, decriminalized. Wars. There's basically been no just wars. The only ones I'd argue is the South was justified against the North in the Civil War, and the War of Independence, U.S. independence, was justified. Those 2 come to mind, and I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a third.
Okay. And
I know, wait a minute, for all you people who are all for abolition of slavery, I'm saying the South was justified. Yeah, there's a little explanation. Remember, long-form show, not 30-second deal. But we can get to that at some point. So the point is, people say, hey, you know what? I agree with you on that topic. I agree with you on this issue. I agree with that. Oh, I don't agree with those 4 over there, right? So they think it's a la carte. And what I was trying to explain to everybody at our Liberty discussion group is, some of the positions that libertarians take, I'd say on the surface, are distasteful. Again, remember long-form context, all that stuff.
Yep.
So on the surface, they're a little distasteful. Like, I'll just throw prostitution, right? People say, well, geez, Tommy, you don't understand prostitution. There's all kinds of bad stuff associated. There's drug use, there's abuse of women, degradation of women, and men, I'm not going to just say women, right? Oh, there's all these bad things, so we should just get rid of prostitution. And I might not argue that we should get rid of it. But the question is, how do we get rid of it, right? I say being of high moral character, right? Drawing people to you because of that, leading by example, right? Those things, that's maybe how you get rid of those things. Using the state to use force to get rid of those things, A, doesn't work, and B, it's immoral to do it that way, okay? So either way, you kind of lose on that. But getting back to my point that people think it's a la carte, right? And what I tried to explain to everybody is 2 things. One is libertarianism is not about necessarily the specific positions that they take on these different topics. Libertarianism is more importantly the glue that connects all those issues. That's why, I would say libertarians would be against the legalization of prostitution if the glue were different, the philosophy.
Okay.
Right? So what I'm saying overwhelmingly, and I've said on the show, what's important is your philosophical position first. That's how you arrive at these specific viewpoints on these positions.
And conclusions.
Right.
Okay.
That's how you get there, right? But again, most people don't. Okay. They go, hey, I like prostitutes, so that should be legalized. Right? All these, they just happen to...
I dig wars.
Right. I dig wars, especially, hey, those guys are a bunch of idiots. We need to go kick their ass. Right? Okay, that's how people create their viewpoints, and they steadfastly stick to them. It's a little amazing. If you say, hey, what's your philosophical underpinning? Most people will tell you, I think, at least my personal experience is, well, I understand what's right and wrong. And it's right to do this, it's wrong to do that. Okay, that's great. Except for what's the basis for determining what's right and wrong? Right? And they go, well, I've learned it from my family. I've learned it from my education. I learned from my religious beliefs or don't have religious beliefs, right? So in other words, they've created their own right and wrong. The problem is you have your right and wrong, I got my right and wrong, and what do we do when they rub up against each other?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're right, I'm wrong, you're wrong, I'm right.
And I want to control yours, and you want to control mine.
Right. And
or keep me, or whatever.
We duke it out, and they say, hey, idiot, that's what we got the legal system for. It gets all ironed out. But it doesn't in the political world, right? You try to gain control of the political system to impose what you think, make it impose what you think is right.
Right.
And I do it. In the meantime, we're pissing away lots of time, money, and effort doing this, right? And the bottom line is, so it goes one way now because you're more powerful than me for the next 20 years. But when you're gone and I'm still here, then it goes the other way because I'm still here and my competition is gone. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's just this kind of constantly meandering thing. What's right and wrong? There's no absolute. They call it moral relativism. Right?
Okay.
And it is. It's just whoever grabs the reins of the bull steers it. Okay? Well, what's that got to do with what's right and wrong? Right? It's crazy. We've talked about this. Might makes right. More votes goes my way just because we have more. So there's no moral basis to that. Right? Whoever has more votes, that's how we do it here. So, again, going back to the glue that's more important, it's libertarianism, or what libertarians understand to be justice. That's what's important, okay? Then how do we define justice? So I went back and said, well, we've done this on the show, private property rights, non-aggression principle, right? And we'll probably talk about that again, but for the moment, we'll just leave it at that. Well, then, how do you get to those things? Okay? And I'll explain this, because this is the part that I really found interesting. So in other words, I'm backtracking to the basis for all this, right? Because my argument was, well, you determine right and wrong by your education, your family, your experience of life. But I'm saying, I don't call it right and wrong. I just define property rights, right? That's because we live in a world of scarce resources. There's a whole long reasoning for that. We have to determine that. But the bottom line is, okay, there's these certain axiomatic statements is where this comes from. And I'll give you a little bit of an example of what I mean. Ludwig von Mises wrote this book entitled Human Action, which he basically made the case for economics, okay? But not only did he make them, he had to back up and have something rock solid to base this on, okay? And it all boiled up, he basically, part of the book was, this is how you create an argument. How do you know that you know something? I mean, he went all the way back, right? But these axiomatic statements are important because in his book, Human Action, he created something called the action axiom. And the action axiom is, he says, men act, okay? And I'm saying logically, you cannot argue with it. That's why it's axiomatic. And here's the point. You're going to say, well, he says men act. You say, no, they don't. Right? That's your only way but you're acting in order to claim that you can't act.
Okay.
In other words, you've just confirmed that men act by saying, no, they don't. Okay? That's why it's an axiomatic statement. You cannot argue with it. I get it. You can tie me up and light me on fire and say, see, I win. But it doesn't defeat the argument. Okay, it makes me dead and burnt. But it doesn't defeat the argument. That's the whole point. It's axiomatic. Okay? There's other axiomatic statements. Hoppe created one. It's the argumentation axiom, which is, in this, my poor example here, is essentially the same thing. He says, men can argue. What are you going to say? No, they can't. That's an argument. Again, it's axiomatic. Okay? So Hoppe's gone one step further and said, well, wait a minute. We now have a number of axiomatic statements. Okay? What happens if one of those contradicts the others? Now we're kind of screwed, right? What are we going to do? So all this has to come from one theory. There has to be one main axiomatic statement where all this comes from. Okay? You say, what the hell does this have to do with anything? Let me just shift gears just for a second. Do you know what they're doing in the world of science? Stephen Hawking and many others, you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to find the universal theory. What's the universal theory, right? We have universal gravitation. What is it? Big capital letter G equals M1 times M2 over R squared, right? In other words, two masses attract each other based on multiplying the two masses divided by the distance between them squared. Okay?
All right.
Sun-Earth deal, that's why the Earth doesn't fly away or it doesn't fly into the Sun or Sun-Earth, right? The whole deal. Universal gravitation. There's equations describing the electromagnetic forces, nuclear forces, etc., right? These guys, Hawking, etc., the Big Bang, remember? They're saying, wait a minute, I think each of these equations in all these different areas are simplification of one big equation that governs the physics of the universe. That one equation is called the unified theory. So, hey, you figure out what the unified theory is, your name's in history forever, right? That's what those guys are doing. What I'm telling you is Hoppe and these fellows are doing the same thing, essentially, for liberty, right? So this whole point backs up to, this is not based on opinion. Hey, you have your viewpoint, I have my viewpoint. That's not what this is. This is a logical argument that's going all the way back, built on, hey, how do you know what you know? They prove that, right? And they come to these axiomatic statements that you cannot contradict because you're in a performative contradiction. You're basically proving them in an attempt to disprove them, right? Whereas a Republican, I'm just generalizing on a Republican, they're all individuals, so they all have their own twist. But, right, they want to spend more money on defense and they want to spend less money on social programs, right? They want to subsidize business. They call it promoting business, right? Where they want to, and they also want to get involved in your bedroom, right? They want to tell you how you can live your life in a more moral fashion. The Democrats, as a broad picture, I argue, they do the same thing, but differently. I know it sounds dumb, but okay, they want to spend less on defense. The whole point is, what are they doing? They just want to shape the world in their image, to their view, right? It's just an opinion. Sorry, we're getting a little too excited here. But that's not what libertarianism is, okay? And that's what people think. When I get into these discussions with people, hey, what's your viewpoint on prostitution? What's yours on legalization of drugs? What's your, they think it's an a la carte thing. It's exactly not. When we talk about the Annoying Peasant radio shows about the political philosophy of liberty, that's the core of what this is. And again, most people will say, wait, what are your positions? And the second one is, how would it work? Right? And those are important factors. I would argue that liberty wins in both those cases, but that takes, more explanation to get there. But the point is, I've had many people say, well, that's your opinion. I have mine. Live and let live.
Bygones be bygones.
Yes, except for, wait a minute, I want to be free. You want to be in servitude, but you also want to force me to be in servitude with you. That's where it's not, I'll live and let live. It's live by my rule or you're out.
Hit the highway.
Right. Because I've had that been told to me many times too. Well, if you don't like it, get the hell out. So okay, and I know this is a bit of an exaggeration, but to make a point. So when the slaves started whining that, hey, we're in slavery, we say, hey, if you don't like it, get the hell out. Right? That seems absurd to people, obviously because they were treated as property and the owners didn't want it. But that's essentially what people are saying to me. And I feel like, wait a minute, you're the guy aggressing against me. I think you should get the hell out. If somebody has to get out, I'm saying it's the aggressor, not the one who's being aggressed against. So anyway, that's my spiel on unified theory. And I think it's important because it provides a basis of what libertarianism is about.
So you're saying that unified theory is yet to be discovered?
Yeah, that's my term, by the way. I just made that up.
You did?
Yeah, I mean, because they call it the unified theory in science.
Okay.
And I'm saying essentially it's the equivalent thing when it comes to liberty, right?
Okay.
And arguably some people think they kind of have it, and then, the libertarian world is a fantastic world, even among the academics, which I realize a lot of people don't read, but they attack. So somebody comes out with a book and says, without saying this, but essentially, hey, I got the unified theory. The critiques come, and they don't come, with kid gloves. But the really cool thing about the libertarian world is the person who wrote the book doesn't go, oh, no, these guys are attacking me. They're just being mean to me. They go back and diligently defend their work, if it's defensible, right? And they say, hey, we're better off for it because I find that I made some errors. Now I got to go back and fix them and tighten up my theory. So when the attackers come next time, the critiquers, they can't defeat me, right? Mm-hmm. And I've seen these debates. I mean, they're vigorous debates. I remember, well, there are two libertarians. How hard are they going to be on each other? You know, what was Ronald Reagan said? The first rule of Republicans, you should never speak ill of another Republican or something like that, right? Because we're all on the same team. The libertarians are not like that because it's not, it's a little different mindset to begin with. We're all individuals, and we need to assert what we believe in vigorously. And we need, if it's good, we should be able to defend it. No problem. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I realized a lot of people don't.
What should we take away from what you just said?
Libertarianism is not just an opinion. It's built on way more than that. It's the only thing that's a coherent philosophy. As much as I know there's Republicans listening, there's Democrats, they call them liberals, conservatives, which liberals makes no sense, but that's a whole nother show. It's built on just a platform of some fellas just decide these are the positions we're going to take. Based on what? And I would argue on an immoral position.
Okay.
Libertarianism is the only moral philosophy. It's the only coherent political philosophy. In other words, what I'm saying is all those other things, they assert something, and at some point they contradict it.
Okay.
Libertarianism properly expressed and properly executed does not do that.
Okay.
Right? In other words, I cannot say something's right, and then later I go, well, that's wrong. Whenever it fits my argument for whatever. Libertarianism does not do that. It's consistent. Okay? And it's moral. That's the thing. That's the takeaway right there.
And that goes back to one of our first shows eons ago. Is what is liberty? What is libertarianism to you? And I think we had one of your compadres on with us at the time, Dane Shielding, and yes. I think we talked about one of you said moral, and the other I think ethical.
Yes, and the difference is, see, libertarianism is about justice. In other words, so I'm not telling you, here's the difference between making the full moral argument. Here's what I'm saying. Justice is not immoral, it's moral. Okay, but I'm not going as far as saying how you should live your life. And let me give you a more specific examples, and we'll wrap this up and we'll go on to the next section. The libertarian position is that prostitution should not be illegal. Okay, in other words, they shouldn't have had authority to make it illegal in the first place, right?
All right.
But maybe the moral. I don't know enough about morals. I'm not here to tell you what's moral, but
what's moral to you and what's moral to me?
Exactly. Most morality freaks will say, and you should not go just visit a prostitute, right? Libertarianism does not say that. It says it should be legal. It does not tell you that you should or you should not purchase that service. That's a different argument.
Okay.
The argument is it would be unjust to interfere with a voluntary transaction.
Would that, in that instance, would that carry across other modern issues?
Yes, a lot of them. I'm just speaking off the top of my head here. Same-sex marriage, I think, is a good one. You have the people on the side that know what do they call themselves? The defenders of traditional marriage. I apologize if I'm mislabeling those people in some way or mischaracterizing their position. And then you have other people saying, no, anybody should be able to marry, right? Mm-hmm. And my argument, or I think, hopefully I'm expressing the libertarian position properly, is states should have nothing to do with it. Mm-hmm. The state should not sanction a marriage between a man and a woman, and also should not sanction a marriage between a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, or a fish and a horse. Right? The point is, it has nothing to do with the system. It has nothing to do with justice. Mm-hmm. Right? Some people say, well, this is immoral. Right? For moments, I'll take the position that it's immoral. So, okay, it's great. I can think it's immoral. We're going to get to Donald Sterling here in a second. Great, I can think it's immoral. So what? Mm-hmm. Why would anybody care if I thought it was moral or immoral? What's consequences of me thinking of it? Nothing. Mm-hmm. I think if you and I want to enter into some kind of contractual, we'll call it a relationship, we do it. We write the contract, we sign it, right? We have a witness, we do whatever it takes to make it legally standing. We do it. Who cares if we choose? We want to coexist. We want to live together, but we don't want to have a contract. We don't have a contract.
A Trigger shouldn't, or anybody else shouldn't be allowed to tell us that we should or shouldn't be able to do that.
Absolutely, because he probably going to want to get on that.
Should be able to.
He wants to get in on the deal. Yeah.
He told the waitress I was his partner.
He's a little upset right now.
Just a little.
I did a little funny in that restaurant. That's what he's referred to. But anyway, so that's the point. So here's the point. Partly, when we talked about morality, and the point being, libertarianism is only about justice. Okay, and I know Dan, if I'm mischaracterizing what he said, I apologize, and let us know, Dan. But he's saying no, it's all about a more moral world, and I would argue it is about a more moral world. If you have a just world rather than an unjust world, you're more moral than an unjust world. But the whole thing about moral decisions of individuals, to me, that's up to them.
And that was a very enlightening show for me to hear you two that are far more schooled in this and educated in this than I, to hear you say something so really fundamentally based.
Right.
Rather than what we normally think of as political philosophies of conservative, liberal, what have you, and whatever bases those have. This goes way beyond that. This goes way to a more fundamental and moral place than just taking a position.
Absolutely.
Right.
Again, there's glue that ties this all together. That's the political philosophy of liberty.
So we're always challenging folks when they listen to think about what we're saying, question yourself. 1,000 times I've said, I dare you to think. I dare you to think about any of the things that you believe to be true today. And why do you believe those things to be true? And then think about what Tom just said.
Hey, get a hold of us on our Facebook page at Annoying Peasant Radio. Write questions or comments there. We'd love to engage people that way.
Okay, so I've been dying for this part of it. We're going to turn the page and we're going to talk about Mr. Donald Sterling.
The part I wanted to get to that, which is really the central, my position was...
For those that don't know...
Yes, go ahead, Brad.
Donald Sterling is the owner of the LA Clippers, who made a very racist remark that was tape recorded, and I don't know whether it was entrapped, quite frankly. There leaves me with some doubt that whether he was entrapped or not, but the bottom line is that the guy said it. He's the owner of a...
And it was recorded.
It was recorded, and it was leaked, and so now he's in all sorts of hot water. The NBA that rules, I guess, his enterprise, or that his...
The basketball part of it.
The basketball part of it has now come down and said, you can no longer own this team, and you're banned for life, and bad.
Yeah, you're out.
You're out because of what you said.
Yes.
And we cannot associate with people that, or have people represent us that believe and speak as you have spoke.
Yes, that's the case. And going back to a little bit about, the morality issue, the system of justice is about property rights, right? It's not about what you think, right? Libertarianism is very open. You can think anything you want, right? Again, people talk commonly, well, I have the freedom of speech, the right to free speech, right? There's no such thing. There's only thing that exists is property rights, Seymour Rothbard, long story. So, but the point is, libertarianism is actually very open, promotes a very open society. And, that's a vague term, open. What does that mean exactly? Well, that's a whole nother show to really explain that. But as long as you don't violate rights, you can think anything you want. You can pretty much say anything you want. Okay, Dr. Walter Williams, I'm one of his biggest fans. He happened to write an article, I think, May 13th. That's today, right? Is today's date. He basically writes, doggone it. He says, basically, so Donald Sterling is a racist. So what? Right? And most people...
I knew that was going to... That was... Before I started listening to you and us having discussion, I would have gone, well, damn right, that guy ought to be out on the block, off on the streets, and he shouldn't be whatever.
Absolutely.
And then we talked about things like the Chick-fil-A and the owner of Chick-fil-A, and I went right to that as we started hearing about Donald Sterling. And I went, you know what? Donald Sterling ought to be able to say that he likes what he likes and doesn't like what he doesn't like.
Right. He only likes ducks from the north.
That's
Good.
right. And he only likes chicken in the morning. I don't care what it is. Right?
Exactly. He should be able to say anything. Again, libertarianism is the opposite of the thought police.
And that would be true if only the LA Clippers played the LA Clippers.
Yes.
And they were a standalone entity.
This is the complication, in this matter. I don't know what agreement, when you sign up when you purchase a team, what agreement do you have actually with the NBA?
To be a franchise in that organization, in that business, in that enterprise, in that, I would go so far as to say, a most exclusive club.
Yes. Now, depending on what kind of agreement you make there, if the agreement basically says, and
you
obviously
can't be saying the dumb stuff that
you can't be saying racist stuff,
right?
As long as, and we'll argue later what exactly was racist. They're in the agreement.
If that was a bylaw of the club,
then they probably have a justification for
kick him out of the club,
right?
Okay,
that's a great point. I need to set that aside because I don't know those details.
That's right.
But assuming, leave that out, that potential agreement that they may have aside, who cares, right? Some people are atheists, and when people support religion, at least when they talk about it, I believe in whatever, the God, Bible, etc., they get really angry with them. Well, I don't care what you believe. It doesn't matter what you think.
And you and I believe that our current system tries to legislate morality.
Yes.
By might and will of others.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that God should be in public school.
Yep.
So I fight to get it in there.
Right.
You believe God shouldn't be in public school.
I think I caught a story recently that the Supreme Court upheld that said.
Yeah, that's right.
That said that God can be stated, or a prayer can happen in school. All you got to do is just tune it out, or whatever their position was. So all of these peripheral things.
Yes.
To give examples.
They're connected, obviously, by it. But the point is, the thought police shouldn't exist. In other words, I'm probably slowly getting myself in trouble speaking out against the state. But I violated no one's property rights. As a matter of fact, the state systematically violates people's property rights. They probably will want to come after me for saying that, hey, I'm not a fan of the state.
Okay.
When in actuality, I should be going after them because they violate my property rights and your property rights on a continual basis.
Okay, so Donald Sterling.
Exactly, he's keeping me on track. See that?
So Donald Sterling, here goes a little rant down the holler. Donald Sterling should be allowed to be a racist and say what he wants.
Absolutely, I don't care if he's a racist. I don't care if he's a bigot. I don't care what he is. It doesn't.
Right.
He didn't violate my property rights. He violated no one's property rights. Is the point by saying what he said? He may have offended people, but that's not a violation of property rights to offend somebody. If I say, hey, I don't like your socks, you might be offended by that, but I didn't violate your property rights in doing so.
Okay.
You want to talk about socks? Come on, we'll go there. I'm not scared of you.
I'm not talking about socks.
Okay? So that's the point. This is all about thought police. People are going to know it's not just what he thought, it's what he said. Well, most people say, hey, you got the right to free speech, which means you can say really smart stuff, you can say really stupid stuff. And wait a minute, whether you're a racist or not a racist, you can clearly make the argument what he said was stupid. Right? I mean, because it wasn't
in his best interest.
Yeah, he damaged his own business.
Right.
He trashed his own business and he lost himself control of that team.
Right.
Okay? Obviously, should he have been, assuming he has some agreement, because of course the NBA I'm just saying, look at the circumstances. I believe, at least on the court, on the team, the active roster of the team is dominated by people of color that he spoke out against, right? Look at the overall payroll on his team. I would argue, without looking at the numbers, I'm just speaking off the top of my head, probably overwhelmingly paying those players more than white players on his right. So all the evidence is to the contrary, right? His actions are the contrary was. So he's not discriminating against.
What is the ethnicity of the entire league? It's
a
far
clear
away
majority is black,
yes,
right?
Right.
But wait, and there's a reason for that. In general, the black minority of the U.S. society, they're better basketball players. That's why they're there. I'm assuming he's wanting to win games. So he hires anybody. He doesn't care what race you are. He doesn't care. He cares about your basketball skills. Singly, right?
One would think.
Which causes him to not discriminate in the broad sense that people use the term discriminate. I would argue, of course it causes him to discriminate. He hires the best basketball players that he can.
And
that's discrimination. But
what's even worse timing in all of this is he's got a very contending team.
Yeah, which he put in jeopardy by speaking stupid.
After sucking forever, now he's got quality team, and he's basically taking the rug out from under.
Yeah. So it's just been a disaster for him. But again, read the article by Walter Williams. Of course, he states it much more eloquently than I am here in verbal discussion. But it's very interesting, what he talks about in the article. He damaged the value of his team. Nothing. Basically, does the price of the team go lower because he has to sell now? Of course it does.
And I thought about that too, that now the club that he's in is going to come in and take control and mandate or take the reins completely out of his hands to get the best price for the team.
Absolutely. But all the potential buyers know he has to sell, right? You can get the best price when somebody offers you a price, say, nope, I don't need to sell. I'm not saying. You have to make an offer so great that a guy who doesn't want to sell sells.
Right.
But that's not the case here. This is a guy who has to sell. So necessarily the prices will be lower than that they would have otherwise
been. So the sharks are swarming.
Absolutely. Which they should. There's no I don't have any there's nothing immoral of what they're doing. I'm just saying this is the circumstance that he put himself in by saying this stuff, right? And I don't know the circumstances of how it got recorded. It's one thing kind of to say something. It's another thing to do it in a way that it could get recorded. Hello, are we on?
Yeah.
Right? So it's crazy what he put so much at risk. I don't, people say, well, he's a really smart man because I don't know. I don't know the guy. He might be really smart, might be really dumb. I have no idea.
Right.
By the words he used, I'm not so far to the smart side.
What I know about the guy, he was very shrewd in his real estate endeavors.
Apparently so. Or, you never know. Could have been dumb luck. He was in the right place at the right time.
All that, but he got there.
Speaking of that, did you hear about the Joe Montana thing? That's next week's show. Joe Montana and the San Francisco Stadium.
No.
Did you hear it?
Nope, I haven't heard that.
Interesting. Anyway, next topic. The last thing I want. Are we done with Donald Sterling?
We are. Have we made you, the listener, pissed by Tom saying, and I agree with Tom, Donald Sterling is allowed to be a racist, as anybody is allowed to be
a dope
of their opinion. He could choose to be an idiot. He could choose to be, I don't know what, a very sharp dresser. I don't care what it is. He should be able to do as he pleases within his own enterprise.
He violated no one's property rights.
Right.
Big deal. That's a nothing.
Yep.
You can make the evaluation. He's smart. He's dumb. It's of no consequence.
Knock yourself out. Yeah, be what you want.
Have fun. Write all about, put it on the news for 18 hours a day. Great.
Okay. All right.
Whatever.
Next.
The last thing I wanted to talk to that I think this was really important that I kind of wanted to get to at the Liberty discussion group on Thursday, but we didn't get to it. It's about, I think we talked a show or two on patents.
Yep.
We talked about patent trolls. We talked about a number of court cases regarding.
Before we started talking about patents, I thought patents were one of the most important things that happened in business.
You're not alone, by the way.
That's right.
Or I should say you weren't alone.
We've actually really pissed off a couple good friends of mine with our patent position, or I have since then, because I believe in what we're talking about.
Yes,
So,
and-
all right,
and
yes,
property
we have
rights.
done that. Yes.
Supporting property rights. And let me just step back 1 second. In the libertarian world, intellectual property, which is patents, trademarks, copyrights, blah, I don't know all the terms
Right.
I got anymore. That's what we're talking about here.
Yep.
Music,
Yep.
books,
Mhm.
and basically gadgets and gizmos, if you will. Right. So that covers intellectual property. And people were saying, I think the majority opinion in the libertarian world, I don't know how, 5, 10, 15 years ago was, wait a minute, my idea, my property. Therefore, I should be able to protect my idea. I came up with the better mousetrap, Brad. That's mine. If you were to use it, to copy it, you have to pay me a royalty if I even allow you to do so.
Yep.
Right? That's the basic
I
idea.
got a new mechanism that squirts my squirt gun farther than anybody.
Right. I put a patent on it, so
Yep.
you can't copy it.
Okay.
Okay. So what this does, what is this really? Okay. So here's the problem. Basically, it's a trade secret. That term is kind of commonly used. But think about the word secret. If it's a secret, you don't know it. Right?
Right.
If I tell you, hey, do you know what's going on? You know, the wife of my neighbor or something? And I tell you, well, it's no longer a secret, right? Because I just told you. Okay. Right. Trade secrets are the same way. If I tell you, or if I disclose it to you, okay, it's no longer a secret. Now, there is one caveat. If I write an agreement with you beforehand, say, Brad, I'm going to disclose something to you related to the neighbor of my wife or whatever, right? And when I tell you this, we're going to have an agreement here that you aren't going to tell anyone else. And if, by the way, you do, and it's determined that you did, you owe me $10 for every person that I can show that you told.
Very similar to a normal thing in business, almost like a non-disclosure agreement.
Contract.
A contract.
It's a simple contract, right?
Yes.
If you agree to it, you sign it, right? If you say, no, I don't agree to it, now I got a decision to make. Shit, am I going to tell Brad anyway?
Yeah.
Or am I not going to tell
Are we going to continue to share things with him or not?
Right. Okay. So,
to what detriment could this hurt me if I do, and to what gain would I have, or do I want if I continue to do that?
Which anybody would do with any contract.
Correct.
You would look at it that way,
Yes,
right?
Right.
And that's what determines whether you enter or not.
Okay.
Okay. So let's just back up to. I like to have them use patent law because we talked about it on prior shows. It's a legal protection, essentially on an idea, a gizmo or a gadget. Basically, it's the idea behind it that has really the value. So when I do that, though, and let me back up. Ideas, I'm going to argue, essentially are fundamentally different than physical property.
Okay.
Right? That's the distinguishment I want to make. When I give you that cup of water and say, hey, it's your cup of water, and you consume the water, it is consumed. Right? In other words, I can't also consume that water because you consumed the water.
Okay.
It's exclusive, mutually exclusive. If you consume the water, I can't consume the water.
Okay.
If I want to consume water, I have to get different water,
I
new
eat
water.
corn chips. I eat the corn chips. You can't eat the corn chips.
Exactly, right?
Okay.
Ideas are fundamentally not like that. Okay, I have the idea for the better mousetrap. I tell you the idea. My idea is not diminished in any one tip, but actually the idea now exists in both of us. The two ideas now coexist, which are, when I say two ideas, the same idea in two locations, right? And you could tell Trigger, and now it's in 3 locations, and the idea hasn't been diminished in any way. It's just now essentially been copied. And then almost, other than our time and our energy of thinking, for free. We can replicate that a zillion times, and essentially the idea is never consumed. It's never gone unless we all forget it, right? Then somebody's going to have to rethink it eventually, right? But that's not the way physical property works. If I have a board, my board, you can't also have my board. I'm the only one with the board, right? You say, well, I can go get another board. Yes, you can get another board.
But it's not.
But it's not this board. There's only one of this board, right? And so ideas are fundamentally different. And the way to explain that is ideas, let me back up just a second. I would say we fundamentally live in a world of scarcity. That's what I'm talking about poverty. ideas are not scarce. And when I say scarcity, they can coexist in as many minds as there is on this planet. The one board can't. And when the board is consumed, it's gone. The ideas are never consumed again unless you have the caveat in there that we all forget it. Then it is gone. So they're fundamentally different is the point between physical property and intellectual property. Let's back up. Let's just use the example of a book, for instance. You write a book. It's a fantastic book. You say, well, Tom, you can't copy my book because it's my book and it's copyright protected, right? And I understand today's world, it is copyright protected. But how would that be handled in a free society? In a free society, if let's say I copied your entire book word for word and at the end said, Tom, right? And I give it to Trigger and I say, hey, Trigger, look at my book I wrote. When in fact, obviously, it's your book.
I'm having a really bad flashback about college papers.
Yeah, there you go. What have I actually done? You say, see, wait a minute, no copyright, no problem. Think about this. I said Trigger, and by my signature, look at my book. This actually isn't my book. So what did I do? I committed fraud. I represented something as my idea when in fact it was not. It's yours. So there still is protection, but in a free society, I'd be able to copy your whole book, word for word. I could just hand type it on my computer, print it out, give it to Trigger and say, check it out, Brad's book. Right? I'm not misrepresenting anything. It's Brad's book. It is, in fact, Brad's book. The point is you don't own the words. If you own the words, now every word you wrote in that book could not be written in another book. Eventually, we're going to run out of words. Right? What about patents? As we patent protect things, it gets harder and harder to create new things because we have to do a patent search. We might be infringing on somebody's patent. Oh, there's some dude in Bangladesh who got the patent on this certain color of Velcro. We can't use that Velcro. Are you kidding me? He doesn't. I realize in today's world he does have the patent on it, but he shouldn't have a lock on that idea. Right? In other words, we're retarding innovation. We're slowing it down. We're lowering our standard of living. Why? Because we're using the force of the state to say you can't use your property the way that Trigger has a protection against. It's really, I'm telling you that how you can and can't use your property. It's a property rights infringement. That's what copyrights, trademarks, and patents are. They're not, people think they're for protection of ideas. It's the opposite. If you look at the rate of innovation before all this crap existed, it was exploding up until, if memory serves, which it probably doesn't, I believe it was the time of the steam engine, because patents started going crazy then and innovation started slowing down, right, at the rate. Now people say, well, you're crazy. There's more new technology crap today than there was in the 1800s. Well, yes, because we inevitably still continue to build, but I'm saying it gets more and more difficult. Apple and Samsung just had a big
huge
to do. It's just constant.
Right.
I mean, I could cite one, I could cite two, I could cite three, but it's zillions of them. They're constantly fighting. Why? Because of this patent garbage that's going on. And I'm saying products are developed and they're not innovative because of patent protection.
So you make a better mousetrap. Mm-hmm. It can't be protected in a free society.
Right.
I get your mousetrap and I go, that's a pretty good mousetrap.
Yep.
But I want to sell more mousetraps. I want to make more money. I like Tom's, but I'm going to make it in red. Or I'm going to make the spring a little different.
You could make the exact same mousetrap as Tom, right? You just can't say originated by Brad.
Okay.
This is the original mousetrap of Brad. Because it's not, right? And the only reason is if you did say that, you'd be committing fraud.
And where does that then do innovation? So I change it. What is I think a common patent, isn't there some percentage has to be changed
yes.
for 20% or something like that?
Yeah, there's some crazy rule.
Isn't that a good example of how it's being retarded?
Yes, because here's the deal. You could replicate essentially my product. And you say, well, wait a minute. first of all, people automatically assume that you're going to be more successful because you just copied it. Well, wait a minute. You confront the same barriers that I do.
Yep.
You want to you got to try to lower your
Yep.
cost to outsell me. Well, says you can do that.
Right.
Even if you figure out the idea how to, you got to manufacture it at a high production rate, potentially.
Yep.
You got to do that efficiently. You got to get all your supply chain, blah, 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 all your administration infrastructure to go. And likely, in order to beat me in selling, because I'm always going to say the original Mousetrap by Tom, you're going to say the unoriginal Mousetrap by Brad.
The better original Mousetrap.
Right. You can't say original, because as soon as you say original, it's fraud.
The better Mousetrap.
The better Mousetrap.
The
But
better original copy.
yeah,
Whatever.
the original copy.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, you can say it. But that's, if people will see that, oh, that's better. The original copy is better. I think just saying that is better, even though it's the exact same product. Maybe that'll work, and that's your angle. Then I'll change my slogan to I copied my original. I don't know, right? I'm going to do...
Mm-hmm.
Or
Raise the
you
bar
could
again.
supply better service. You could be in a better location for your retail sales. You could have lower cost of production because you're more innovative than I am.
Right.
You have some angle to make your product better. Well, then as soon as you do that, I'm going to go, dang, that Brad, he's outsmarting me. I got to figure out how to beat him. Right? So what happens? Ultimately, our cost of production continues to go down because we're in stiff competition. Who benefits? The consumer. Our products keep getting cheaper.
Because we're competing.
Yes.
On a open playing field and not a limited playing field.
Exactly.
Okay.
No one gains an advantage because of the use of force.
Okay.
Can't do it in a free society.
Okay.
Right? So who ultimately benefits? Society benefits. Everything gets cheaper and more. Here's my way to beat you. I got to innovate. Remember the old Apple model? They kept coming out with new crap that was just ahead of everyone. They charged way more than everybody. They still do on their laptops and stuff, right? People buy them because they think they're worth the money. They're better. By the way, their margins are pretty good at Apple, right? They get boatloads of cash. So you don't have to compete on price necessarily. You can compete on quality and service. You can compete on location. Right? There's a zillion.
I make a new mousetrap that beats the original, that catches 5 times more mice, and I charge double for it.
That's a good deal, right?
Right.
And if you can convince the marketplace that that's a good deal,
Or prove that out, or get the reputation,
sales go through the roof. And the way you know you're doing a successful job is you make profit. If you're losing money, you go, I'm not supplying what the consumer wants at the right price with the ancillary services.
hello Mexican cartel and marijuana.
There you go.
There.
That's it, right? So, and people constantly say to me, well, wait a minute, so you're saying, before we had patents, it was 1800. You want to live like that? That's totally cheating, right? Because you're saying we've had innovation since then, right? You're saying live without the innovation? No, go, hey, the reason we have that innovation is because of the regulation we've had. I said, no, here's the real answers. Why? Because logically that doesn't follow is why I say no. It's not that I just say no. Is I'm saying there would have been more innovation had there been less regulation, right? And logically, that's true. If you put less restriction on me, I have more capital, more time, or whatever to be innovative. And if I don't use that time to be innovative, someone else might or will, and they'll beat the pants off me. The bottom line is a better product does come to the marketplace because of that.
See an opportunity and seize the day.
Exactly. And it happens all the time.
Yes,
it's freaking believable, right?
Right?
The guy sold me this little box, call it an iPod, that he could put 10,000 songs on, right? That's insane. First of all, no one ever heard of it before, right? No one ever needed such a thing because we didn't even know of such a thing.
Yeah.
Guy made millions of dollars.
I got this case of CDs in my car. I got my music right with me.
Exactly. Why
I
would
got the whole trunk full of CDs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I mean, the whole point is everything that you have that's an innovative or new product came from the free market. It's a hampered market that's out there, but it didn't come from government. I know I've heard this argument. I've had this argument online with people say, didn't you ever hear of NASA? They come up with shit. Yeah, that money is stolen money. That's a whole other story. That's how they did it. That's not the way to do it efficiently. That's the way to do it inefficiently. So anyway, I just wanted to relate this back to patents, intellectual property rights, and distinguish that for people that intellectual property is fundamentally different than physical property. Mm-hmm. And that's why there's a little different, it's a consistent rule, but on the surface it looks like it's a different rule. for those two things.
Interesting.
So I just thought that was really important.
Okay, did we make you think again, folks?
I hope we did.
Hope we did.
Yeah, I think we're going to wrap her up for
Make
now.
you think that we're nuts, probably. But
Yeah, hang with us.
Yeah.
You got to gain the whole story, or at least get your dander up and fight with us.
If we made you think,
something.
let us know. It'd be awesome. Check us out on Facebook. Send us an email. Send us a Facebook message.
Oh, look at that. There's that.
Oh, I thought we were going to hear the Mexican cartel music kick in. Come on.
All right, here we go. Changing our tune.
There we go.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. It's a pleasure having you with us. Check us out next time on the Annoying Peasant Radio Show.
Here in Baja, California.
Sí, señor. Adiós.
The edge of sombrero, the gringos, it flows, yes, the cockatoid. Kill Agnes with a glance from the pupil of annoyed. I might store the underwear drawers of my dresser. Rhymes from true God, yours is child of Melissa. A lowercase B hanging under the bar.